Today, we're going to be talking about multiple rosters, multiple accounts, my experience, why I did it, the advantages, disadvantages for you if you're thinking about doing it, some things that you're likely going to run into, maybe some advice on my end just because I've been doing this for a while now, and some pretty common questions that I get asked. Want to go over some of those as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, why would I even want to make multiple rosters? Well, as you can see, I have this spreadsheet here from when I originally made my second roster on my main account. Now, when I say account, I mean your Steam account. So a roster is, of course, a separate roster on your Steam account. Like I have 3 different rosters on my Steam account, my Dubla Steam account. And a different account would be a completely different Steam account. So on this Steam account, my main Steam account, I made my second roster, my first multiple roster. The biggest reason I made one is because number one, I wanted to try more classes. As you can see, I bought all the character slots. I was playing all these extra characters because I was having fun playing extra classes. But as I started to play them, I got them up to doing a Rehaz and Argos. I noticed I'm paying for these boxes. I'm paying out gold for these boxes, but I'm not earning any gold on these characters. And quite frankly, it feels kind of bad. So why don't I just make a different roster? That way I can play different characters, but also earn gold on them and progress them how I want without just taking, so to speak, from my main roster. When I did this, you had to level up through the entire story. There were no really juiced events to get you through all the story and all of that like there are today. And from that point, I did make an artillerist, but it wasn't with an event. From that character onward, though, I only made characters with events. As you can see, this machinist, the scouter, immediately pretty much 1405 because of the express event. And if we fast forward a little bit, I had a Reaper, same thing. And I kind of just stopped playing these bottom 6 on my account. I stopped, and I have all this stuff here that I just copy pasted from my main 6, but I never did anything with those 6 bottom characters anymore. And I still don't really. I run low ping sometimes on them, but not really often. But as you can see, it just kind of continued to progress as the express passes came out, and we have artists here, and that's generally how I went about making more characters as time went on until Jumpstart came out. And I can't remember when exactly Jumpstart came out, but somewhere around right here, and we made the third roster here. And so that's kind of how I went about things. I just waited for the next express event and then added another character to my roster, and that's exactly what I continue to do now because there's really no rush. And if you try to rush and make a complete second roster with 1580s or something like that, you're gonna be in for a trip. And I can definitely say this from my experience, is that it is hard and it takes time to bring up and do the extra stories and do all the extra things for a second roster, a second account, or whatever it is. Okay, so if you're thinking about making one, you can make one. There's, it's very easy just to click on an open roster that doesn't have any characters on it and click on a new character and make one and start to run around and do all that. But you have to be prepared and understand that it is going to take some extra time out of your week to be able to do that. Now, in my opinion, if I were to offer you any advice, if you're wanting to do that, I would say focus on the biggest priorities for your main account, and then, or your main roster, and then whenever you have a little bit of time here and there, dabble in that alternate roster, and it will casually grow on its own, and you can just kind of nurture it every now and then. That's what I would suggest. I wouldn't say that you should make a weekly plan to go hard and I'm going to make this whole second roster by the end of the month, type of thing, because it takes a lot, especially if you want to raise a second roster and push it. You are going to have to take a lot of resources from your main account to try to push on that alt roster. And in all reality, it's really not worth it to do that, because at this point, the passes, the express events, are so juiced that just waiting for them to then basically get like a free 1580 or almost free 1580 or 1600 character is so useful, especially if you've already built up your main roster so much. You know, you're just going to be using those events on your alternate roster. But all in all, where I'm sitting at now with my multiple rosters and now accounts, because I've started a war dancer on my wife's Steam account here. As you can see, this war dancer, I wanted to try it out, and this is a great way to try out a class, is just going onto, you can go onto a different region even on your same Steam account. You can go to like NA West. If you've never made a character over there, you can go to NA West, try out a character, use the express event, kind of, you know, dabble in it a little bit and figure out if you want to really go in on that character on your main roster. Maybe that's what I did for the war dancer. I used the pass, got her up to 1540, played her a little bit, and discovered, hey, she's really fun. And so then I made a war dancer on my main roster, and I'm pushing her to the moon. She's going to be like a second main now, because I just really enjoy playing her. So that's a good thing that you can do, going to a different region and making a new character or a different Steam account or whatever it may be. So that's definitely an advantage of having the ability to do that, is kind of testing out classes. But even on, you know, my wife's Steam account here, we made a breaker, and I'm having a blast playing breakers. So much fun. And guys, this just kind of comes back to the very beginning of why I even made multiple rosters in the first place, and that is to have more characters to play, because at the end of the day, it's just fun, and I get to play more with you guys. Not necessarily right this second, because I'm not streaming much because of my situation, but guys, that's another time, another story. When I'm streaming again, that's just more opportunity to do more raids with more people and have more fun with the community in this game. And I always knew that I wanted to do that, because raids are the most fun thing for me, which kind of brings me to my routine with how I approach playing all these characters. And I'll give a TLDR for this, because I'm going to talk about this in a different video a little bit more in depth. But for me, I really enjoy the raids. I don't love the dailies so much. I actually really dislike the dailies, and now I'm only doing dailies on, I think, 6 or 7 characters, and 5 of those 7 I'm doing them fully rested. The other ones, which are my main and my war dancer, they're the only ones that I actually do unrested, and that's just because I'm really trying to push them as much as I can. So needless to say, I don't spend a whole lot of time doing dailies, because doing them rested allows me to get 66% of the materials gained for only 1/3 of the time spent. It is such a good trade-off in my opinion, especially because with that time, I'm able to do more raids on those other characters that I play. Instead of doing so many dailies, I get to do more raids. And that's what's great about this game. This is one of the founding features of Lost Ark, is the raiding experience. And I just really enjoy it, and especially playing on different characters going through those raids. I don't always get all these things done. For example, like this is my last priority. This is why I have this for on these 4 characters. Why? Because 1520s, it takes the longest to get into parties, and it takes the longest to complete the raids, as opposed to all these 1600s, 1580s, even the 1540s. It's much easier to find raids and get them done very quickly, or quicker anyways, and have fun doing so, instead of really just trudging around trying to get in a party at 1520, which is going to immediately segue into the advantages and disadvantages and some of the struggles that you're going to have creating multiple rosters or multiple Steam accounts. The biggest difficulties, whether you're making a new roster, new account, it doesn't matter, is the gatekeeping, is starting from nothing. Even though now you don't have to get so many cards to get an okay card set, you don't have to grind to get so many skill points, because we have the horizontal express, which is absolutely freaking insane. I actually did it on all of my characters already, or all of my rosters, because it's so quick and so easy and gets you so many skill points, gets you so much stuff. But anyways, you now get Deep Dive 18 for free, basically, with the express pass, or in this express event, you got Deep Dive 18 for free. So now you have Deep Dive 18, but because of that, now everyone has Deep Dive 18, but you're still roster level 55 or 60 or something like that. You still have no titles. You still look super sus. You have no demon damage. You have no extra damage versus these other bosses. You look sus, and everyone looks sus, because you're like, that's now the bottom place, right? Is deep dive 18, roster level is low, and all these other things that go along with that. Okay, so the gatekeeping is still going to be the same. People are still going to recognize, hey, this is a new account, this is a new roster, whatever it is. We're going to pass on that guy. We're going to go with someone else who has maybe a title or bigger gems or something to signify that they're probably not a new player. Whether that is, in fact, because that account is old, you have a really high roster level, your account is more built, you have better cards, all those types of things. But some ways to work around that, those difficulties, specifically getting gate capped, which is the biggest difficulty without a doubt, is to simply have people that you play with, make friends in the game, have a guild, so that even though your account does look a little sussy, they're still going to play with you, they're still going to do the raids, because you do in fact know how to do them. So I have made a video about this. Make sure and go watch it. How to make friends, how to find a guild, how to find people to play with consistently. I promise your game experience with Lost Ark will be much better doing so. But that's the number one way. But the second way that you can do that is to have something on your roster that signifies that you are not a new player, which I think the number one way that you could do this is to have a hell title. Now, you can buy hell titles, you can get bust through like Hell Vaultin, for example, or your account can get piloted through other hell raids, but generally that's not gonna happen. So more often than not, if you have a hell title, when you apply to a lobby to try to get into a raid, they're gonna say, oh, well, you know, probably just an alt account. It's much better than beautiful academic on your title, right? Or maybe you have a really high level main and you have really big gems. Well, you could mail those gems to your alt character on the same server, if it's on the same server, of course. And, you know, now you're 1560, 1580 with like level 9s and 10s, and people are going to see that and go, oh, well, you know, they're probably not a new player having 9s and 10s gems. It's probably just an alt roster. So little things like that, or big things like that, can help or alleviate the gatekeeping situation. But if you cannot do some of those things, then you're really just going to have to deal with the fact that you're going to get gate capped, and you might have to join some like semi-learning parties just to get accepted into raids, especially when you're on eye level. If you're not super over eye level for that raid, you know, you're just going to get gate capped. That's the way it is, right? Why would they pick you when they can pick someone who has or looks on paper like they're a much better option to get through the raid, right? It's just natural. So definitely don't take it personally, but it is just kind of the way it goes. Or, you know, one more method that you could use is to whisper, if they're on the same server, the party leader or the raid leader for that group that you're applying to, you can whisper them and say, hey, this is an alt account, just, you know, let you know, by the way, I do know the mechanics for the raid. And lots of times that does work. I've used that a lot, and it does work sometimes. Also, one of the standout difficulties for making other rosters or other accounts is going through the story, even if it's not the whole main story. For example, on the breaker that I made on my wife's Steam account, I still had to run through Pletia, I had to run through Voldus, I had to do all of those necessary pre-quests, all that stuff, and it takes time, and it's really not super fun after I've done it so many times on my main roster and my second roster on Xena, or I guess Lutera now. So, you know, it's something that if you really hate doing the story, you can't knowledge transfer through it. You have to go through it at least one time to then be able to knowledge transfer other characters through it. So it is a bit of a pain in the butt. And speaking of other advantages and disadvantages, let's talk about making multiple rosters on the same Steam account opposed to making multiple Steam accounts or using multiple Steam accounts to play on different accounts. So one of the standout differences is that you only have one set of events per Steam account. So for example, if you have 3 rosters like I do on one Steam account, you're only going to get one Path of the Breaker. You're only going to get one Express event. You're only going to get one Elgacia Power Pass to spread through, or to pick who you want to put it on for those 3 rosters. as opposed to if you have multiple Steam accounts, you will have one event on each one of those accounts. So for example, I had all of those events to use on my breaker on my wife's Steam account, but also I use them on my main Steam account on mine for my War Dancer. Okay, so that is definitely an advantage. But right next to that is a big disadvantage of having to log off, wait for the game to boot up again, quit, go back and forth, all that stuff. And with multiple accounts, Steam accounts, you do not get to share Crystalline Aura, which is a bit of a pain in the butt, especially because it costs about 10,000 gold or more ish. It really just depends on where the blue crystal prices are at to get that for the month through the Lost Ark store. But if you have multiple rosters, so all of these characters for these 3 rosters that I have, they share the Crystalline Aura. So it's 10,000 gold per month or ish for all of these rosters. But if I want to do Crystalline Aura on this account right here, then I'm gonna have to do that separately. And if you only have one character on that account, Crystalline Aura isn't too big of a deal. But once you start having, you know, this, like the second one, after I made Breaker on here, I was like, this is a real pain. It takes so much more time just to go to the storage or try to transfer something or whatever it is to a different character. So that's when I said, okay, it's definitely worth, I'm just going to buy Crystalline Aura because at the end of the day, it's so convenient. So that is something that you're going to have to think about. If you want to make a multiple or a second roster, or if you want to make a second Steam account, whatever it may be, that those are some advantages and disadvantages of each of those. And having multiple rosters, it's so easy just to switch rosters. You just go to the change character selection screen, pick their server, and then boom, you're right back in, right? There's not like a 5 or 6 minute downtime period of quitting the game, then relaunching it, then relogging in or whatever. Most people are going to avoid making multiple rosters or multiple accounts because of the disadvantages in doing so and having to start over. Even with the Horizontal Express that's out now, you're still at a massive deficit in your roster progression when it comes to cards, skill points, damage versus whatever type of boss that you're doing, and of course just how your account looks in trying to pug and get into different activities through the game. It takes a long time to progress, and you know, you don't really realize how much you've done on your main roster or your main account until you start from nothing on a new one and you're sitting there going, wow, this is a lot. And so most people don't really even want to try to do that. It is a little bit of an undertaking, and that's why I would really suggest, if you're thinking about doing this, really just take it slow. Don't try to rush through it or whatever. Just, you know, whenever you get some time or some extra time, you want to hop over there and, you know, dabble in it a little bit, then go for it. And I do want to set one thing straight real quick, is there's a lot of people who think playing multiple rosters is, you know, against TOS. You can't do it. It's banned. It's a bannable offense. Guys, if it was a bannable offense against TOS to play multiple rosters, why can't I simply click on Nineveh, hit enter, and start to make a new character to indeed play on that different server? Okay, guys, it really doesn't make sense. There's zero logic behind that thought process, because if it was against TOS, they would not allow you to make a character on a separate roster in the same region, okay? So, guys, you don't have to worry about it being against TOS to play against, or to play another roster, all right? That's not something you need to worry about. I will say, though, playing multiple rosters or multiple accounts at the same time, aka multi-boxing, is against TOS for good reason, and it's very logical that that would be against TOS. Okay, this is like if I was playing right here on my computer, but I also had a window of GeForce Now streaming the game from the stream service, also on like a different account or a different roster, whatever it is, playing at the same time. I don't even know really like how you go about that. You probably have to have like a bot playing on the other account at the same time while you, I don't know, but that is against TOS, guys. guys. Okay, obviously botting is also against TOS. Don't do that. Don't RMT, don't bot, don't multi-box, don't do any of those things. But guys, that pretty much wraps up the video. That is everything that I wanted to cover. A ton of questions have been being asked, so I just wanted to make this and go over it. But if you have any other specific questions, maybe you're still wondering, maybe you should do it, if, you know, given your circumstance or whatever it may be, feel free to ask those questions down in the comments. I would love to help you out and answer them. Also, consider joining the community Discord if you're wondering about this type of stuff, or if you are just wanting a fun, positive place to be in the Lost Ark community. That's exactly what the Discord is. And huge shout out to everyone that is in my community that makes up that Discord. That is quite literally makes it what it is. I appreciate y'all, and it is a great, fun environment to be there, just people that enjoy playing the game. Other than that, guys, that is the end of this video. If you learned anything, or if this helped you out, or maybe just like Lost Ark content in general, consider subscribing to the channel. We're almost at 6,000. Oh my gosh, I know that we could get there with your help. But guys, that is everything for this one, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.